This is your Wednesday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. So much to get to today. I got Rod Carew on the show, Hall of Famer Rod Carew. To my knowledge, the first Hall of Famer I've had on this show. I have to go back and double check that, but very cool to talk to Rod Carew about all that he's got going on right now and to talk about baseball. Talk some, just what about the game today? What is he like? What is he not like? What are his thoughts on baseball in 2021? So we'll get to that in just a little bit. A new twist in the Josh Donaldson, Gerrit Cole back and forth. They should face each other tonight, by the way. That situation coming to a head after Josh Donaldson more or less accusing Gerrit Cole of cheating. And Gerrit Cole had a response to that on Tuesday. We'll hear some audio from that. But first, what did I miss? It's the story that keeps on giving. Not the Josh Donaldson, Gerrit Cole, and that one keeps giving too, but that one's only given for a few days. It's the Aaron Rodgers story is what I'm talking about here. Aaron Rodgers skipping the first day of minicamp on Tuesday with the Packers. Not unexpected. People thought that's what he was going to do. That was going to be the next escalation in this kind of back and forth with he and Green Bay. But now the Packers are starting to get a full taste of life without Aaron Rodgers, and it's not pretty. I don't know how much you, whether you're listening and you're a Packers fan and you followed this, intently with, a pit in your stomach, or if you're a Vikings fan and you followed, on Tuesday with glee in some way, but, no Aaron Rodgers at minicamp means the other quarterbacks get a lot of work. And, frankly, Jordan Love needs a lot of work. He's a young quarterback, and I'm not saying that because I don't think he's ever going to be any good. I'm saying that because young quarterbacks just do need the work. Matt LaFleur said as much on Tuesday, the head coach of the Packers. Here's a quote from Matt LaFleur on him on Jordan Love getting a lot of the first team work. Quote, he needs every rep he can get right now. He's a young quarterback that was not afforded a preseason last year. Give him as many as he can handle. I just think every rep he takes is so valuable, and he can be learning something from the good and the bad. Sounds like from Rob Demovsky, ESPN staff writer, his Twitter feed. There was it was a mixed bag, I guess, but there was probably more bad than good on Tuesday. He charted all of his throws in the team drills, 12 of 23. That's probably not going to get it done in on Sundays. Again, though, this is right now we're on June 9th. That was June 8th, so long way to go on that. Also had a failed 2-minute drill. Blake Bortles also took some snaps for the Packers in minicamp, so not great. Underscoring, if Aaron Rodgers wanted to prove a point by being away, more than just being upset, if he wanted to prove how good he is, well, he did that probably by his absence, by them getting a longer look at the potential future without Aaron Rodgers and the succession plan that they put into place when they drafted Jordan Love in 2020. David Bakhtiari, really good offensive lineman for the Packers, friend of Aaron Rodgers, was asked about, kind of everything that's going on right now. I thought he had a good quote, so I want to play that for you right now.
I care about Aaron Rodgers from a friend perspective. Whatever he wants to do, whatever the situation that comes out, I will never hold any grudge against him. That is my friend. That is someone that I've appreciated, and he has done a lot for this organization and a lot for me as an individual. Now, as a teammate, I would be idiotic to say that I don't want the MVP back. He's the MVP of the league last year. He's done amazing things as from the quarterback perspective, our quarterback position, but not only for the franchise. So absolutely, spending time with him, I do give him jabs, but it's in all good and fun. I've definitely voiced to him, I'm like, whatever happens, look, it's out of my control. The situation is between you and the organization, and that's where it's going to stay.
Packers receiver Davante Adams maybe even took it a step further. Quote, I've got his back through everything, so he knows that at the end of the day, if there's ever a wonder if he's lost a teammate or something because of all that's come out, he knows where I stand. I'll stand on the mountain and scream on the mountaintop that I've got his back. I omitted a word that would get me in trouble if I said it, but let it be known that Davante Adams is a Aaron Rodgers supporter, and the interesting part right now is how this has the potential now to divide the team in a certain way. Not in a us versus them kind of way, but if you got other players now mad at the Packers and the Packers management because of how this whole situation has been handled, if you've got their best wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the game, basically saying, I don't think it's disrespectful to say, I I don't think it's disrespectful to say I support Aaron Rodgers. I think I think anybody would want this player back. I think that's fair, but also at the end of the day, he's going to be unhappy if Aaron Rodgers ends up leaving, and he believes that the fault lies with the way the Packers handles this. So, just another subplot to watch in all this. If the fallout from this, how does it affect other players on the Packers, regardless of how this whole situation plays out? Plenty more to come on that, of course. More minicamp the rest of the week. I'm sure we'll hear from other players, probably hear from other members of the organization as this goes on. But the story that keeps on giving, you guys, and we'll see where it ends from here.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Really excited today to have Hall of Famer Rod Carew on Daily Delivery. A lot of things going on in Rod's life that I want to talk to him about. Rod, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. My dad upstairs, the good Lord is really taking care of me and blessing me at the same time.
And you've got, at an age, you're 75, at an age when a lot of people are sitting still. It sure seems like you have a lot of projects going. So maybe right off the jump, talk to me about your book and some of the other endeavors that you're taking on right now.
Well, some of the key things are, like doing things for childhood cancer. I've spent the last 20 years doing that since my youngest daughter passed away from leukemia.
Right.
And she made me promise that I would continue to fight. So, I'm still doing a lot for kids that are facing these different blood diseases today. And, I'm still in baseball a little bit with the Twins. I've been working with the Twins for the last 15 years. I go to spring training with them, work with the guys, and then when I get tired, I fly back out to California.
That sounds like a pretty good. Gig. And I saw you went to a game earlier this year for the first time in a while. Obviously, COVID not making that possible a year ago. How did that feel to get to a baseball game?
Well, it was great. And one of the reasons is my granddaughter wanted to go. She's 3.5 years old. She loves baseball. And she says, Papa, can we go see baseball? So I says, okay. So I waited for the Twins to come into town to take her. And the funny thing is that was one of the games that was canceled because of COVID.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So then, she didn't get to see a ball game, but boy, did she love those hot dogs. And, she couldn't wait to eat one or two of them.
Oh, so you guys got to the game, and that was the one that was called off, unfortunately, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I was able to at least say hello to the guys from the top of the dugout,
Okay.
and to Rocco, the manager.
Yep. What a strange time in baseball. If I might ask you a little bit about just the game itself right now, you're seeing batting averages at kind of a 50-year low. Approaches to hitting a lot different than when you played the game. What are your big picture thoughts on baseball right now and how baseball is being played?
Well, I think it's different. They taught us to play the game the way we did by moving runners over into scoring positions and having guys steal a base and let the other guy drive them in. Now they're not giving up any outs to get runners into scoring position. Like if there's a runner on second base with nobody out, we were forced to either bunt him over or hit a ground ball to the opposite side of the field to get that run over into third base, because there's so many different ways you can score from third base, even with 2 outs. I don't really care for the shift.
Right.
I think the shift is overrated, and I'm disappointing in the players who don't take advantage by trying to make adjustments to go the other way.
They wouldn't have been able to shift very well against you, but how do you think you would have fared in the modern game, especially if they did try to shift you? Would you have been able to beat the shift, do you think?
Well, since I use the foul lines, from left field to right field, I used to hit the ball all over. So the shift wouldn't have worked with me. And I don't think they would have put the shift on anyway, because they thought that I knew where I wanted to guide the ball. But no, it wasn't that easy.
When you watch baseball today, who are some of the players that you like to watch?
Well, Mike Trout is one. Albert Pujols is another. Miguel Cabrera with the Detroit Tigers, he's another one. The Yankees have a couple of guys that I like. A couple of young Latin guys that play the game the way they were taught how to play the game. But it's such a difference because today they're trying to get kids that can't hit home runs to uppercut the ball and make a lot of outs in the sky. Right. They forgot that there are more base hits on the ground than hitting the ball in the air. And, I could have hit home runs if I wanted to, but that wasn't my job. My job was to, get on base, steal a base, let Killer Brewer or Oliva drive me in. And it was all about the team. It wasn't just about the player, and today it's all different. It's all about the players, and I'm not favorable about the way they're playing today.
Just in terms of approach and trying to hit the home runs, and in your career you had, especially, the second half of your career, you had pretty much every season, you had more walks than strikeouts. These days, that'd be a complete rarity. It seems like strikeouts aren't the taboo, the no-no that they used to be. It used to be you struck out 100 times in a year. It was a badge of shame. Doesn't feel like that anymore, does it?
Well, you know what? The longest walk on the baseball field is from home plate back to the dugout. And I hated that. So, I tried to minimize, my strikeouts. I tried to make sure that I could pick up some walks, and I was on base a lot, just so the other guys had the opportunity to drive me in. So today, if you're going to hit 3 home runs, that's not going to do the club anything, and that's what they're teaching these kids to do. Elevate the ball, so they're hitting more pop-ups and they're striking out a lot more. And the other thing that I noticed too is that so many kids in today's game, they're guessers. Yeah. They're guessing, what the pitch is going to be instead of learning how to track the ball and then have an idea what they want to do with it. I learned how to track the ball by trying to pick the ball up out of the pitcher's hands and then reacting to that instead of just, guessing along, trying to guess along with them. Never did that. I did it once. I had a runner at second base, and he had the pitcher's signs, and he called the third base coach over and to tell him, go tell Rod that the guy's doing this and he's doing that. And so he calls me down the third base line and told me. And then the first pitch that he told me about was a breaking ball, that the guy's throwing his breaking ball in this count and this position. So I went up there and I said, okay, I'm going to look for the breaking ball in this situation. Guy threw me a fastball, almost hit me in my face. So I stopped. I just stepped out the batter's box, yelled at the third base coach, and I kind of went emotion with, under my chin, cut it out. I don't want to know. I'm just going to battle it my way and make the adjustments my way.
It doesn't sound like you wouldn't have liked the one of the freshest scandals in baseball a year or two ago was the sign stealing, especially using electronics, and now we're talking about pitchers using extra substances to doctor up the baseball, and that spitballs and everything like that's been around forever. What do you remember from your era and pitchers doing doing that sort of thing?
I used to tell Gaylord Perry, I said, you can throw it to me as much as you want. I'm just going to pick out the dry side and hit it on the dry side. Because he threw me a lot of them, and I expected that to happen whenever I faced him. But, it's part of the game. Pitchers will do different things. We had pitchers that would have pieces of sandpaper in their gloves just to scuff the ball. And before I started playing, one of the big time catchers in the major leagues would just kind of take the baseball and clip it on his spikes before throwing it back to the pitcher. And it's amazing what those pitchers can do with a little nick or a little rub. And if you can't control it, then you're going to hurt someone. Just like Tony Conigliaro got hit in the face. That ended his career because the guy that he faced that day threw him a spitball and couldn't control it, and ended his career, actually.
Yeah, and it's it's only, I guess now it's more of an issue of what kind of substances they're using. They're using kind of more advanced stuff, and it's kind of coming to a head now with the Twins playing the Yankees here, because Josh Donaldson has talked about Gerrit Cole using some of those things. So it's part of the game, I guess. It's a gamesmanship issue, but it's also, I'm sure these hitters are getting frustrated because their batting averages are way down. And I don't know
if they stop trying to hit home runs, hit the ball on the ground, because we always have that saying: there are more base hits on the grounds than in the air.
You said a little while ago you could have hit home runs if you wanted to. How many home runs do you think, if they had said, Rod, we want you to change your approach, still use the other field at times, but we really want you to try to hit balls out to right field in certain counts. How many home runs do you think you would have hit?
I could have hit 15, 20, 25 home runs a year. Because when the Twins signed me, I was more of a power hitter, playing and coming out of the Bronx in New York. But then they said to me that, we've got 6, 7 guys in the lineup that can hit home runs, and we want you to get on base, steal a base, let the other guys drive you in. So what it did for me is have me maintain my discipline and not trying to, loft the ball or get under the ball and hit fly balls.
And you talked about stealing bases too. I mean, you were famous for that, including stealing home. That doesn't feel like it's too much of a part of the modern game either. Not that players aren't fast. It's just been kind of pushed out of that territory and, not deemed a valuable play. What do you think about that?
Well, they're not stealing bases that much today either. But the difference in today's game is that every pitcher, as soon as the guy gets over the third, he goes into the stretch and he holds that runner at third. They're not going through the full windup, which allows the base runner to, come up with a timing and then steal it. So that's the biggest difference in why they're not doing it anymore.
A couple more things for you, Rod. Really appreciating this conversation, just talking baseball, because obviously you're one of the all-time greats, especially in the hitting side of things. As you look at this Twins roster, like you said, you've had an opportunity to work with some of these guys. Who do you like? I've kind of had my eye on Luis Arias as someone who, I don't want to put an unfair comparison on him, but in some things he does, his approach seems to be a little bit more aligned with the way you hit.
Well, when I first met this kid in spring training, I knew that his job was to just hit line drives, keep the ball out of the air. And I worked with him at doing that, trying to get him to stay on top of the ball, swing down on the ball a little bit more. And he was a good student, So as many of the games as I watch, I've seen that he's continued to do that. And now I've seen some of the younger guys that they brought up because of injuries.
Yeah.
And they're trying to swing up a lot. And some of them are swinging and missing, too much. So I don't know, maybe they'll change. They're trying to make a big impression, and maybe they'll, change, and do things better.
Yep, absolutely. What else is on the horizon for you, Rod? Anything else we should know about?
Well, I had a book that came out,
Right.
and it's called One Tough Out, which was named by Reggie Jackson because he thought that, I wasn't easy to get out as a hitter. So he named it One Tough Out. And it's a good book, It just tells something about my growing up, my career. It talks about my daughter. It also talks about my heart transplant,
right,
and a young man that I met that gave me this second chance. And I think it's good reading. It's just a good book.
Well, you've had an amazing life. I'm sure people are going to want to read all about that. And you've got a podcast too now. Am I right about that? Or you're starting a podcast?
Yeah, the podcast is going to be out probably at the end of the month. We're still doing some things to get it going, but my son has brought me out of the dark ages with all this stuff. So he really keeps me abreast. He travels with me, and he's really helping me out. So we're just going to have fun with it and enjoy it and meet the fans and answer questions that they have. So I'm back in baseball again.
Well, I love to hear that. You've got so much to give, so much knowledge, so much history, and so many thoughts about the modern game. Rod Carew, really enjoyed having this conversation with you today, and best of luck with everything you've got going right now. Okay.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, and thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to voice some of the things that we've talked about.
Absolutely, Rod. Take care. Okay.
Okay.
Love chatting with Rod Carew, and I think he made a good point about hitters and their approach these days. Some of it's a little bit, this is the way I played versus this is the way the game is played right now. And I think, data will show that, the strategy of today's game does, by and large, when it works, produces a lot more opportunities for offense. That said, not all of what's going on right now with hitters with an all-time 50-year low batting average, not all of that is because of whatever's going on with the ball and what the pitchers are doing with the ball. A lot of it has to do with the way hitters are trying to hit the ball, right? It has to do with the approach these days of not being afraid to strike out, swinging to hit the ball really hard, extra base hits, home runs, things like that. So his point was a good one, that if you don't just blame the pitchers, blame the approach of the hitters. And that said, some of this kind of comes back to the gamesmanship and the cheating that's been going on for a while, the countermeasures, the steroid era, which by and large, benefited both hitters and pitchers, but probably hitters more than pitchers. The sign stealing from a few years ago that definitely benefited hitters. And now you get the pitchers saying, well, this is my countermeasure. How far have they gone is probably the biggest question. And if you listened to Gerrit Cole, and I got to this a little bit at the beginning, if you listened to Gerrit Cole on Tuesday in advance of his start Wednesday against the Twins, and remember, he was called out by Josh Donaldson specifically. Is Gerrit Cole, does the spin rate that went down on Gerrit Cole after baseball started to threaten to crack down on this, was this a coincidence? Kind of saying, I don't think it was a coincidence. Gerrit Cole said, yeah, I just didn't have as good a stuff my last start. Well, we'll see, but it's going to be really interesting if pitchers suddenly, as this crackdown happens, if the drop in the spin rate stays consistent, then you're going to know what the problem was. But Gerrit Cole was asked specifically about spider tack. It's this stuff that apparently has been kind of showing up in clubhouses. It's especially stuff that gives you a special amount of movement, a special amount of spin on the ball. Let's put Gerrit Cole in the spin zone. Let's see what his spin rating was on this quote about spider tack specifically when he was asked about that specific substance and whether he has used it.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't quite know how to answer that, to be honest. There are customs and practices that have been passed down from older players to younger players, from the last generation of players to this generation of players. And, I think there are some things that are certainly out of bounds in that regard. And I've stood pretty stood pretty firm in terms of that, in terms of the communication between our peers and whatnot. And I, again, like I mentioned earlier, there's, this is important to a lot of people that love the game. And this is including the players in this room, including fans, including, teams. And so if MLB wants to, legislate some more stuff, that's a conversation that we can have, because ultimately we should all be pulling in the same direction on this.
It should be noted, I took out about 5 seconds of awkward silence at the beginning of that quote, between the end of the question and the start of the answer. So add that to the awkwardness of the answer itself, and it sure does not sound like a guy who is entirely innocent, does it? Sounds more like a guy who has been doing something, thought that it was something that everybody else was doing. Maybe it is something that a lot of other people are doing. It certainly is possible that, you give everybody the same amount of illegal substance, and the more talented people are going to take things to a completely new level, whereas the less talented people might then become more of an average player, something like that. So Gerrit Cole, maybe he doesn't need all of these things ultimately, but to be at least a good major league pitcher. But if he has been using them, and that answer sure didn't make it sound like he hasn't been using them, does it? Sure makes it sound like he has. Then he's got a lot of searching to do, and it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of that massive contract plays out. The most interesting thing, though, is Wednesday night. Gerrit Cole versus Josh Donaldson. Gerrit Cole said he wasn't thrilled that Josh Donaldson brought his name up, said it was his right to do that, but the real answer will come on the field Wednesday night. Probably no fireworks. If you have to guess, a lot of these situations, you build them up, and then it turns out to be, not as explosive as you might think. But you never know. I'll be watching for sure. It is a subplot that I want to see in Wednesday night's game. Whatever happens in tonight's game can't be much worse than what happened in Tuesday's game, by the way. 8-4 Twins lost to the Yankees. Twins were up 2-0 early, then everything kind of fell apart. The wheels come off the bus. Yeah. Phil Miller noted in his game story some symmetry, too. I'm all about symmetry in numbers, symmetry in stats. Twins 24-36 now after 60 games. That's exactly 400 baseball. They were 36-24, the exact flip of that record last year in that shortened 60-game season. So if you're looking for if you're looking for the difference, it's completely the opposite. The wins have become the losses have become wins, and the Twins are 13 games out of first place right now and falling fast. Let's end with the cooler. Nikola Jokic from the Denver Nuggets wins NBA MVP award. Second round pick of the Nuggets back in 2014. Came to the team a year later, was a rookie, the same rookie class as Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, even though he was drafted a year earlier because he played overseas another year before making his debut in the NBA. But just a guy who's steadily improved and then took his game to a completely new level this year. And I saw floating around on Twitter, his when he was drafted, because it was a second-round pick, a Taco Bell commercial was playing in the background. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, we're going to go to commercial, but we're still doing the draft. Nikola Jokic was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. Like, that tells you how far this guy has come in this league. And it just shows you, it doesn't really matter where you were drafted. You can become an MVP in the league. It's rare, but this can happen. So, don't throw away your second-round picks. They might become MVPs, and certainly pay attention to those Taco Bell commercials. That'll do it for today. Good stuff coming up the rest of the week. I'll have Rachel Blount on Thursday's show to talk all things Olympics. So many Olympic trials coming up. Rachel does a great job covering all that for the Star Tribune. I think Lavelle E. Neal III will be on Friday's show, columnist at the Star Tribune, talk about a whole bunch of things. So that's some stuff to look forward to. I think we're going to hear from Kirk Cousins sometime Wednesday, too, so we'll do some of that on Thursday's show as well. Thanks for joining me here today on Daily Delivery. Always, I implore you, download this podcast, write a review, subscribe to Star Tribune, startribune.com, and we'll see you again on Thursday.